I read T.H. White's The Once and Future King a couple years ago, and it was one of those game-changing books, where you finish it and you're like, wow, I'm different. Everything is different now. So since then, I've been going through other versions of the King Arthur story, leading me, inevitably, to the majorly important, super seminal, unbearably boring La Morte d'Arthur, or The Death of Arthur, by Sir Thomas Malory. Rather than aimlessly complain, though, I'm going to focus on this one particular aspect of the book that's kind of captivated me. Everybody jousts. Like, all the time. Not in that sense that the book is very joust-focused, but that's also true, but in the sense that any interactions between any of the characters is accompanied by jousting, as if that's just like a normal part of running into people that you know. And also people you don't know. Tristram runs into this one knight whose brother he killed once, and he's like, oh, shoot, man, can I make it up to you? And the other guy's like, no, we have to joust. And Tristram 100% does not mean to kill the dude, but accidentally does anyway. So there's an absolute risk of mortal peril, but then when Gareth and Lancelot meet for the first time at Camelot, and they're both knights of the Round Table, they joust for kicks. And presumably Lynette is standing there, already pissed with Gareth because she has to go on a quest with this knight that she thinks is a total loser, and now she has to worry about him getting killed right out the gate, rather than diving into a million other anecdotes. My point is that every joust has the same stakes. But why? Why are all these disparate circumstances treated the same? Besides it being weird, we think it would benefit all parties to do less beating the crap out of your own allies and treating your worst enemies as if they're your playmates and not super evil people that need to be stopped at all costs from committing further atrocities. But instead, none of these guys ever seems to question the fact that their social lives are like the Dear Sister SNL skit. They go on accidentally killing their siblings while vile tyrants roam free. My answer that I've come up with to explain this dynamic is that it's useful. Pretending that the joust is an unavoidable element of society makes it possible to unequivocally settle disputes and to determine hierarchy. Like, it's often really useful that Lancelot is the best, and via the joust, this can be quantifiably demonstrated. Some dude is carrying off a poor young maiden, and one of Arthur's knights unhorses him. The matter can be considered settled without there being any risk of the guy messing with her again. We can see this way of thinking in real-life history, where war used to be an accepted and natural part of diplomacy rather than a last resort. Feudal lords only stopped throwing away the lives of tens of thousands of their citizens, specifically while allowing themselves to encounter very little bodily risk, when World War I made it logistically unaffordable to continue doing so. And I know that's a cruel way to put it, but these are cruel leaders whose perspectives we're talking about. So, understanding the conceptual utility of the joust, let's turn back to the scenes that keep disturbing me the most. The scenes where knights who murder innocents and rape women are seated at the same table as Lancelot and Tristram, and are allowed to avoid justice as long as they can avoid being knocked off their horse. It seems like what's really going on is like putting up with that one person that you don't really like in your friend group, but you just tolerate them anyway because you don't want to start drama. Except no, it's life or death. The good guys can't afford to treat their enemies any different than their friends, or even to hold what we might consider like real grudges against them, because if they did so, it might disrupt the overarching status quo. Loyalty to the social order comes first and foremost. Dharma transcends even the king or one's family. For the sake of perpetuating feudalism, of easing the transition when your allies become your enemies and vice versa, I think Sir Tristram and Palomides go from being nemesis to lovers to nemesis again like 3 times. The joust must be the standard. When I say for the sake of perpetuating feudalism, I am trying to highlight something sinister, but the truth is also that this is a time and place in which it is impossible to secure justice, in which there is no enforceable legal system, no accountability for the wayward brute. So rather than pursuing systemic change, everybody just prays for a strong enough knight to come save them, and knights oblige as best they can without transgressing the almighty order of the joust. T.H. White's version of the story is found on the notion that there's something wrong with the world, that there's a chaos which Arthur devotes himself to remedying in order to improve the quality of life for his subjects, and his failure to do so is what makes that version so moving and tragic. But for Mallory, there can be no such arc, because the knight's worldview is rooted in the notion that nothing is fundamentally wrong, that the current order is appropriate and systemic change is unnecessary. You know what? That's why I hate this book. Why be chivalrous? Why risk valor if you cannot find a real purpose? Not the thrill of the adventure or the glory of the tournament, but a real purpose.